All right, hello and welcome to lesson 4 of Last Epoch University. In this particular lesson, we're going to talk about the loot filter, a very popular feature in Last Epoch that has some significant advantages over, for example, PoE's loot filter, but definitely requires some basic understanding of the system in order to get the most out of it. So let's go ahead and get right into how to use Last Epoch's loot filter. But of course, first, let's talk about what it is and why you might want to use it. The loot filter is a way to filter out items that don't fit your criteria. For example, the item is too low of a level for you to find valuable, has the wrong affixes, has an undesirable rarity like common items while you're in the end game, for example, and other reasons as well. Pretty much any reason you can think of why you might want to filter out something, this should be able to do that. It's also a way to highlight items you don't want to miss. For example, rare affixes that you've been looking for, high tier items that are particularly good for crafting or just an upgrade of what you have, valuable idols, etc. Some advantages of LE versus PoE. I mentioned that it has some, and definitely does. For one, it's much easier to make your own. I don't actually know anyone who makes their own loot filter in PoE. They almost all use Filter Blade. Which is fine, but it's pretty nice to be able to make your own and customize it the way that you like it without having to go through a third-party website if you don't want to. In this game, you definitely can. It's got a nice in-game interface. Looks like this, where you can put everything together. You don't have to go off-site to do so or work in a web browser or a notepad or a notebook. And the rules are relatively easy to grasp. There's nothing like too crazy in there. And by design, there's actually some rules that people have asked for that might not get in just because they're a little bit too complicated and they might overburden the ability to learn the system. It's easier to design build-specific filters in LE because of the fact that you can make your own. You can really gear things towards a particular build. I have a different filter for every build that I make. I don't have a... Well, I have like just a generic one, but I rarely ever use it. I'm almost always using a filter that's specific for the build that I'm playing. And filters are also easy to change on the fly. Editing in the loot filter system is very, very easy to do. Just as easy as to actually make the filter to begin with. Now, some disadvantages from the PoE, because there are a few. One is there's no custom sounds. In fact, there's no audio options at all. You can't make a really cool item make a ding sound or, some cash dropping on the ground. You can't do anything to alert you of a really good item dropping like you can in PoE, which I think is a pretty significant disadvantage. That hopefully they will address at some point. They've definitely said they're going to, but for now, it's not there. Your visual customization is also more limited. It's pretty much just colors and an emphasize button that makes things a little bit bigger. And that's really all you can do with that. You also can't filter shards, glyphs, or runes. Those are all the crafting materials, which are the closest equivalent to the PoE currency. It's not as important for LE, though, because it's pretty easy to pick up most things on the ground. There is a vacuum feature that doesn't exist in PoE. It would still be a nice option to have. You do tend to want to pick up pretty much everything you can, for the most part, unless you're being like hyper efficient or just like in endgame going fast. But nothing you can do right now. Again, not a big deal, nothing like in PoE, but would be nice to have. So what if you don't want to make your own filter? We're going to go into how to make your own filter in a bit. But what if you're someone who just doesn't want to deal with that? A lot of people are like this, and it's understandable. It can be quite a bit of work to make one, even in a system as easy as this. So filters can be exported into a downloadable format. So a person who makes a build guide can include a loot filter and give you a link to it. You download it, and then you can just pop it into your own game, and therefore get it in your own filter. Even better, lastepochtools.com is a filter creator. Let's take a look at that. And I'll show you how to actually use it. I do have a companion video though that will go into a little more details. It's going to be just a really quick how to go about it. So once you're in the planner, let me see. Here's a druid that actually exists. Yeah, let's use that one. And you've created your build guide. We'll go over Last Epoch Tools third-party applications soon. But you create a build in here. You set everything up. You have all your loot in here the way that you'd want it to drop. And then you click on this button over here. It creates a loot filter, and then you have several options for strictness and ways to just customize it a little bit. There's not a whole lot of customizability here, but there is some. You create your filter name and you download it, and then you pop it into your folder from here. So this is a very easy way to set up your build the way you want it, and then just use this system in order to make a loot filter. It's a good system. For like 95% of players. It's going to work pretty well out of the box. Not a whole lot of customization required to get it up and running. Oops. Okay, so let's talk about how to add a filter, because I just showed you how to download one. You need to actually be able to put it into your game. So you go into your filter like this, and there are a couple ways to do this. You can press this button here, which allows you to import an existing loop filter by opening your filter folder. You can also press export filter. Either way, it's just going to open up your filter folder, which is all you need to happen. So I click that, I open my filter folder, and then the loop filter I downloaded, I just drag and drop into here, and it will immediately show up in my list of filters right there. Very, very easy process. It'll show up right in here alphabetically. Okay, so what if you want to make your own? You love the customizability. You like the idea of having one for every build that you make. You tend to make your own builds, and you would like more. You like the filter to be more geared towards how you like to filter things than maybe Last Epoch Tools, which is a more generic version. So let's go through the basics here. The first thing you have to do is create a new filter. Press the plus button up here and create a new filter. And then it's going to give you an option to create it. We'll just do a test filter here. You can put a description if you want to. You can have an icon color. You can have an icon itself. All that in. There we go. I got my test filter. Icon color and icon are all built in right there. We press confirm, so it's all set up. Now from there, we can start actually navigating the filter. Let's go through the different buttons we have to work with. We'll start up here. This is, of course, your drop down box to choose your filter. We've already got the one we want. The plus we've already used. Creates a new filter, open a filter folder, or you can also paste clipboard contents. It's a little bit more advanced. I don't ever use it though. You don't need to know this to make a loop filter. Almost all loop filters at this point are a file you can just download and drop in. You have the edit button up here, which is edits the current filter basics. So the title, description, icon, color. You can duplicate the filter if you have a filter that's pretty well set up that you just want to edit in a way to make it fit your a new build from an old build. They're pretty close. They have all the rules in the right order. I do that pretty much for every build myself. You have this little button here, which just gives you some basic ideas of how the filter system works. You have the add rule, which creates new rules for the filter. Delete filter, pretty obvious that does. And then the export filter just allows you to open up the location or copy to clipboard. Very similar to the plus. Okay. So let's get into actually making a filter from here, putting in some rules. Go to the add rule here, and it will bring up this edit rule button. It'll give you a bunch of options. The first one's your visibility. You want to show the things that you're selecting in here. You want to hide the things, or do you want to recolor? Recolor, by the way, also is a show function, but it shows and changes the color at the same time. So if you do a recolor, you de facto have also a show. You don't have to create two different rules, one show and one recolor. You can just do recolor and you're good to go. We have the emphasize button, which just makes the stuff on the ground a little bit larger. We have character level dependency, which allows you to have this rule only active during certain character levels. For example, maybe you want one that's just active during the campaign, so you set it for 0 to 55. So by the time you're around Monolith of Fate, it is changing over to some different rules that maybe you have set up for 55 to 100. Go over conditions. Okay, so conditions over here. This is actually where you tell your loop filter what you want to do. Let me change this over to, let's make this show, just for simplicity. So we can choose between a fix, class requirement, level, rarity, item type, or of course no condition. You can add multiple conditions here. You can add like 4. I don't think I've ever had a 4 condition filter, but you can if you want to. Each condition is going to make it even more strict than what it's looking for, or what it's hiding. Look at that, we already went through all that. Pretty good. Okay, so let's go into the conditions specifically. What are they doing? What's each one of those going to do for you? So let's just delete that, get to one condition. So if we choose the affix, we have a show here. Hide will just do the opposite. If we choose an affix in here for hide, it'll get rid of those affixes. Anything that has those affixes won't show up. If we have a show, anything that has those affixes will show up. So we choose an affix, then we can click this button here and we can see all of the affixes in the game here. Every affix is shown. You can do a search here. Let's say we want to see vitality. Do that. and then it'll show anything with vitality on it. So we've got vitality here, we can click that. We've got vitality here, we click that. So items and attributes will both be shown if an item has that on it. You can also just click the drop down directly. There's a lot of affixes though, so search does tend to work pretty well until you know what you're doing. But anything you put in here will add together, and the way that the rule is going to work is if it sees any of the things that are in there. So if you have vitality, dexterity, strength, and intelligence all selected, any item that drops with vitality or dexterity or strength or intelligence will then show on the item. We also have this little thing here. We'll go into advanced options in a minute, but this allows you to require a certain number of the effects to be on the item. So again, if we have vitality, strength, dexterity, and intelligence, and we change this from 1 to 2, is now going to require, this goes up to 4 by the way, but because we only have 2 selected, it's only showing up to 2. If we select 2, we have those 4 choices, then it's going to require some combination of those 2 to be on the item. So either vitality and strength, or vitality and dexterity, or intelligence and strength, etc. Okay, the next one is class requirement. So this says I only want to see, or I want you to, not only want to see, but in this case, I want you to show me anything that is related directly to Sentinel. So if it's a Sentinel only affix, like Warpath, it's +1 to Warpath, then it will show you that item. Level looks at the level of the item itself. By the way, just to let you know, I don't use these. I use affix, rarity, and item type. Those are the only 3 I use. But in case you want to, I just want to go over what they do. In this particular case, it will only look for things below, let's say, level 50. So we put that in there. It will show you anything that's below level 50. This one will show you anything that's above level 50. Pretty simple stuff. Rarity. So this is going to filter out by the rarity of the item. Normal, magic, rare, exalted, unique, set. If you looked at my previous lesson on gear, then you'll be familiar with this. I actually don't think I went over set, interestingly. Don't worry about it. It doesn't show legendaries. That's because legendaries don't drop on the ground. So you have to create legendaries yourself manually. So everything else in here does show them. Let's see, item type. So this is going to go through the base types. So for example, let's say we want to look at two-handed axes. So we have show two-handed axe. What if you want to only look at certain two-handed axes? Let's say you're a level 50 character, you don't want to see a level 1 two-handed axe. You go into subtype here, and you can select only certain ones. So let's say we select everything above 50. There we go. And now we'll only see all these two-handed axes above 50. This rule will not cause it to show anything below it. And of course you have none. Now you can combine these together. So let's say what I want to do is I want to item type, two-handed axe, again, all level 50 plus. There we go. But I want certain affixes on it. So let's say we want affix. We want some melee stuff. So let's say we're making a fizz build. So we want melee fizz. Melee crit strike chance, melee attack speed. So now with that rule, it will show me anytime that I see a two-handed axe level 50 and above that has at least one of melee physical damage, melee attack speed, or melee critical strike. Okay. How do you modify an existing rule? It's actually very, very simple. Let's create this rule. Here we go. It exists. I want to go ahead and modify it. Let's say I want to add chance to bleed to it. Okay, easy. Click on it. There we go. We've clicked on it. We brought it up. Now we just go to the affixes. We put in bleed. Let's search for bleed. That's under ailment. Chance to bleed on hit. Boom. That easy. Very easy to modify your rule. But if you want to delete or turn off a rule, or copy a rule to make it easier to make an extra rule that has similar rule set on it, that's also quite easy to do. So let's actually do the copy first, even though I've got it reversed on the PowerPoint. Copy this button here, duplicate the rule. We do that. We have the second one up. So now we can go in here and let's say we like two-handed axes, but we also like swords. I'll just change that to sword. There we go. And this actually happened to be pretty much just about, it just kind of defaulted to most of the level 50 plus stuff. We'll just add the Odachi and everything else we want the same. And there we go. Now we have Second rule, we very easily set up. We didn't have to go through all of the different options to get everything set up. Okay, let's say we have both these set up, but we decided we really like swords. We don't really like axes, but we might like axes in the future, so we don't want to get rid of the rule. We want to keep it in there, but we don't want to show us axes right now. That's easy enough. We just check mark this. There we go. That is no longer active. This rule still exists in your filter, but is not doing anything. It is disabled, and if you want to re-enable it, you just click it again, and now it is gonna work and show you axes again. Let's say you've decided, no, actually, I don't like axes, and I'm never gonna like axes. I think axes are stupid. I really just like swords. I'm never gonna need axes in here again, so I just want to get rid of them. No problem. Press the X here, and you've deleted it. Now you just have the sword. Okay, let's talk about rule priority logic, because right now we've been dealing with 1 and 2 rules that don't conflict, but there are going to be many cases, in fact, there need to be if you want a really good loot filter, where rules can conflict with each other. You have hide rules, you have show rules. It's better to make a general rule that can be a catch-all for anything that's not showing you stuff, for example, that hides anything that you're not showing. You want a rule like that. It's a lot easier to set up. But you don't want it to be hiding stuff you do want to show. So you have to make sure that the loot filter is set up in the order that allows for certain rules to take priority. And that's actually very easy to understand because it just takes the top one. Whatever the highest rule is. So let's just duplicate a couple of times here. Let's change this to hide, and we'll remove these completely, and we'll just say hide, rarity. Let's just choose all 3 of these. What we want to do here is we want this rule to hide everything that these don't show. So if it's not a two-handed sword, let's actually change this. Let's make this make body armor. Let's just do body armor. Oops, turn that off. There we go. Just body armor for sentinel, and we want to see again level 50 body armor. Let's just choose health. We only want health body armor 2. It's obviously a very basic loot filter. You'd set this up to be more advanced, but just for testing purposes. So now what we want here is we want to see all body armor that's level 50 or above that has one of those 4 health affixes, or we want to see a two-handed sword that has the 4 affixes that also is level 50 or above. And we want to hide everything that doesn't fit that is a normal, magic, or rare. And in this particular case, the way we got this set up, it's going to work because this the loot filter prioritizes the higher rules, so the top rules, the rules on top, the rules that are up here, over the rules that are down here. So anything up here will override anything down below. So in this case, even though this would hide all of these items up here, like it would hide all two-handed swords, it would hide all body armor. Because the show rules are above, it's saying, no, actually, we're going to show that. If you had switched this, reversed it, and you can drag and drop these very easily. Now it's actually going to hide all of these because the top rule has priority. So how you set up the loot filter, as far as what order the rules are in, is very important. Always set up the things you want to be your priority, that you want to overrule everything else at the top. And then anything that's like a catch-all, you want to put at the bottom. All right, let's talk about a loot filter basic strategy. This is just to get you started with how to make a loot filter that could work for you. So the first thing that I do is I set hide rules below, show and recolor. As we showed here, I have a hide rule that is hiding all normal, magic, rare items. And so anything that gets through all of my top rules will then run into this if it's one of these types of items. And it will be hidden. Excuse me. It will be hidden from my filter. So that's the catch-all. And then the above rules I have for show. I have the show ones where I want affixes. So show all these affixes. I want at least this many tiers. So a good rule to have right under this would be show affix. Let me get rid of these just to make a simple filter that's more readable. Let's say instead of doing all the axes or half the axes and half the body armor, we're a new character and we want to make a melee fizz character. And so we're going to take all those things that we had before. Let's say melee damage on there too. Let's say we want crit. Crit. We're going to take all these things. Let's do some fizz damage because they fit our build. We also want to make a high health build with resistances, of course. Always going to have your resistances. So we take all the health. And we take... so we like armor. We like all the resistances. We'll take all of these, even though some of these might not fit a particular build. Fizz res, there we go. So by making this rule and putting it above the hide all, what I've done, I've said, okay, hide everything unless it has one of these affixes. At least one of these affixes in here. So we put at least one. We could go to 2. We're a new character. That's way too restrictive. We just want 1. So anything that has one of those is gonna now show. Now let's make another one for idols. Go in here. We choose. We're actually gonna choose a fix, but we're gonna go to the idol affixes. Let's go in here and do health, fizz res. Why I do these separately, by the way, because you can do these together. You can just do all the affixes with idols. You can do them with the other affixes, but sometimes you want to change like the number, the tier level of the affixes that you see, or the number of affixes you want to see on regular items, and those don't really exist on idols, and so it's better just to me, it's better to just separate them, and it's easier to read. It's better for readability. You can combine them if you want to. If you're comfortable with working around that. So we just chose some idols that are general idols here. Let's choose like a couple of sentinel specific ones. Let's say we know what build we're gonna do, and we like there's something fizzy here. We like armor. We're gonna block. So we're gonna block. We're gonna shred armor, of course. There we go. Okay, so now I'll see all idols like that. By the way, I didn't hide my idols down here. So what I want to do is actually no, they would hide under that. No, actually we need to do a... Been a while since I had to do the lower stuff. We're gonna do a hide item type idol. There we go. So now idols, we gotta drag this down here. It's gotta be below the show all idols. 14. This is actually idols. It says items, but it's only idols because we only chose idol affixes. So now this will hide any idols that do not have one of these 14 affixes on it. We've got that part set up. Yeah, that looks good. More advanced and stricter. So let's say we want to do some more advanced stuff. So we can put some more specific hide rules above show rules. For example, we want a melee fizz axe, but only if they're level 55 plus. So we add melee fizz to the show affix list. Then we make a new rule above it that hides all axe subtypes that aren't level 50 plus. So let's do that. So again, we're going to see all the melee fizz stuff, and we're going to add a rule. It says hide, and item type, it's going to hide these axes that are below level 50. And there we go. Now, the way the filter reads is if I see anything below level 50 as a two-handed axe, I immediately hide it. If I don't, I pass it on. Now, this one doesn't apply because it's all idols. Now, if that two-handed axe has any of the affixes that I want here, melee fizz, melee crit, etc., then I show it. If it doesn't, then I pass it on. It gets passed on here where it hides it. And then we don't see it at all. That's exactly what we want to happen. Okay. So here's the the generic, hey, there's a lot of ways to make loot filters. A lot of people make them differently. If you don't like the way I'm making this, you definitely can do it other ways, or check out some other people who make their loot filters differently. This is just the way I've been doing it for a long time, and I really like it this way. So let's look at some advanced functions. This is towards the end, fortunately, because this is quite a long video. Advanced functions are fairly new, actually. I think they were added last patch. So let's go into, let's actually go into a show. There we go. So we have a show affix here. We have this advanced options button. We click on that and it says, we have these two choices here. We have tier of individual affixes must be, and tier or total affixed tiers are, or of. This first one says, okay, if you find any of these affixes, they also have to be one of these options. Most people choose more or equal, because that's the one that makes the most sense for most filters. So more or equal Probably should be 2 or than, let's say 3. So by choosing this, what I told the system is I have these 14 affixes that I want. I think this is the idle one. So let's actually switch this out. Go to the idle one. Or let's go to the regular one, just to not confuse. So this is the one where you chose like resistance affixes, health affixes, melee phys affixes, etc. We're choosing the advanced option. We're saying more or equal to 3. What that's saying is, okay, you found an affix. So maybe you found a health affix on an item. The game has found this. Is it at least tier 3 or better? Tier 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If the answer is yes, then show that item. If the answer is no, then pass it on to where it'll eventually be filtered out by the hide rule. You'll only see tier 3 and above if you select this. The other option you have is total affix tiers of the affixes in here. Can be, let's say, more or equal to, let's say 5. So what this rule says is, all right, you've got 22 affixes to choose from. Game. You find an item with at least one of those affixes. Is the total affix tier of all of the affixes that fit into this loot filter, those 22 selected, at least 5? And this can happen in several ways. There can be one affix that's tier 5, that's of the 22 affixes we're looking for. There can be 2 affixes, maybe one's a tier 3 and one's a tier 2. That will also show. There could be 3 affixes, a tier 2, a tier 2, and a tier 1. That will also show. As long as there are at least 5 tiers of the affixes that you're looking for on that item, then you will see it if you choose this this particular filter option. Okay, let's get rid of this. Okay, so that's how the advanced function. Okay, that is all for this this lesson. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to hang out with us as we play the game on Twitch, I stream about 6 days a week. We also have a Discord where you can feel free to come in and ask questions, just have a conversation about Last Epoch or even other video games or whatever we're talking about at the time. We tend to talk about a lot of things. Thank you so much again for watching. I hope you're having a great time on Last Epoch. I hope you continue to do so. And I will see you all again real soon.